Samsung's Note range for the last few years has truly become their flagship device. While the S series is there for the masses, the Note range is there for people who expect more from their device. And while the Note 10 Plus certainly gives you a hell of a lot more. Welcome back to Byte Review. Let's take a look at Samsung's most luxurious Note device to date, the Note 10 Plus. Let's just say it, this is the best phone hardware out there at the moment, hands down. Samsung has really been nailing phone design for a few years now, but the Note 10 feels like the first time they're really just showing off with it. It's a beautiful phone. The excellent edge-to-edge screen blends seamlessly from front to back. Fit and finish across the board is second to none, and the aluminium rails around the edge lock in a true sense of premium quality. Despite it being a pretty huge phone, the smart design makes it feel a lot less bulky, and its surprising low weight makes it comfortable enough to hold in one hand if you need to. While sometimes the design feels all flash, the Note 10 is a great example of the culmination of all of the hard work Samsung has been putting into phone design since the S6 came out. It's truly a wonderful piece of technology. The Note comes in a range of colours, and I know it's not for everybody, but I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't go for the Aurora Glow. This colourway is insane, and I love Samsung for doing it. It's like they saw what Huawei and OnePlus were doing, then couldn't decide on a colour and thought, you know what, let's go mad, just throw everything in there. And the result is this surreal mirror surface that changes and morphs colours in relation to the light that shines on it. And in my eyes, it's a high contender for my favourite colour on a smartphone yet. The only hardware feature that came as a bit of a shock this year was the removal of the headphone jack. And I don't really hate Samsung for doing it, that was bound to happen sooner or later. I just hate that they decided to do it this year when the S10 model still has it. To me at least, it would make sense to do that next year and then remove it from the S line first and then the Note line. I mean, if they've got space for the S Pen, you could argue that they've got space for a headphone jack. However, the specs are characteristically off the charts, which is good news. There's a huge 12GB of RAM in here, which may I point out is actually more than my laptop. There's a Snapdragon 855 processor if you're in the US, or the Exynos 9825 chip over here for us Europeans, and the battery is beefed out at 4300 mAh, so you can check powerhouse specs off the list. And that brings us round to the screen, and you could say it's disappointing that Samsung didn't go for a 90Hz panel here, but trust me, it's really easy to forgive them when the screen is this good. It's as bright as can be, colours are pixel perfect, and that hole punch centred at the top gets my vote over a notch or pop-up camera every day of the week. Media heavy apps like Instagram or editing photos and videos or just consuming content in general is just a fantastic experience on here, and I'm honestly not sure how much better a 60Hz screen can get. The Fingerprint Scanner is an under-display affair and it's okay. I'm glad Samsung went with the ultrasonic variety over the optical ones that we've been seeing on like the OnePlus 7 Pro, but it's slower in my testing. I think some of that is down to the target area for placing your finger being smaller than others, but there's a noticeable difference between the two. However, Samsung have put out a few software updates which have improved it, so hopefully that will continue as time goes on. If you're debating getting a Note, then your decision should really hinge on whether or not you want the S Pen, because it's the main thing that really separates it from other devices out there. The good news is that the basics are as good as ever. Using the stylus to take notes feels great, and Samsung has built in handwriting recognition now, which is really accurate even when it comes to identifying my scrawl. And on top of that, you can also search for handwritten notes, which is pretty awesome. The S Pen is actually also a great way of just navigating the device in general. It gives you a mouse-like precision that just isn't possible on other phones. It's great for editing photos or cutting a video together, or just anything where you want to be more precise. I think if I had one wish for the S Pen, and maybe for the Note range as a whole, is to forget the gimmicks. I really feel this time round the S Pen is just chock-a-block full of them. The biggest of which is the air gestures they've brought in, which lets you wave the S Pen around to perform a variety of tricks on the phone. For instance, you can change the mode of the camera, turn the volume up or down in Spotify, or move between photos in the gallery, all with the flick of a wrist. It kind of feels finicky at best and more like a feature that's just thrown in. That's not to say they're all useless, of course. Some have translated into genuinely useful features. Being able to click the pen to take a photo is a great idea, and I've used that a lot. But for every good idea in here, like writing on the lock screen, there's something not really that useful, like AR doodles or live messages. When it comes to software, I'll admit I haven't actually used a Samsung device since the S8, but I heard One UI was making their software feel a little more clean and simple. And I kind of feel like they've done that, but then I also feel like they haven't really done that at all. Don't get me wrong, it's much better now than what it was, but there's still the ongoing curse of repeating apps. There's menus here, there and everywhere, there's some bloatware, and of course Bixby is still lurking in the shadows, although you can pretty much ignore it for the most part. I am a terror for throwing Nova Launcher on every Android phone, and to be honest, the Note 10 was no exception, so I didn't get the best look at Samsung's software, but from what I did see, I'm not overly keen on it. On the plus side though, the top-notch specs keep the software feeling speedy and tight throughout the system. The Note 10 is rapid and can blitz through pretty much any task you throw at it. Not to mention, the huge 12GB of RAM makes it feel like there's some really good headroom in here for a few years, which is a nice feeling. Samsung have also upgraded DeX for the Note 10, and there's some really new interesting features, but I really feel like that deserves its own video, so stay tuned for that. I haven't tried out the S10 cameras, but from what I understand the Note 10 Plus's cameras are basically the same. But that's actually fine with me because this is the most fun I've had shooting with a mobile phone camera in such a long time. Samsung combine a standard, a wide and an ultra wide for a trifecta of imaging fun, and every shot I've taken with the Note 10 Plus has been generally pretty pleasing. Despite that classic Samsung oversaturation, every one of these shots I've been basically really happy with. As ever, I really enjoy shooting with the ultra wide, and on the Note 10 Plus, it really feels like it's wider than the other cameras I've tested out this year, which is really nice. I must admit, I find the camera app somewhat bloated with options, but in a way, the wealth of options available are what make it really fun to use. The super slow-mo, the array of portrait effects, and the fun but kind of silly video effects are all here. Are they genuinely useful to have? Not really, but are they fun to use? Yes, completely. Quality-wise, I don't think the photos quite match up to the Pixel 3, and I really think Samsung's night mode could do with some work, but it outweighs that just in general enjoyment of use. While the photo side of things is taken care of really nicely, the Note 10 Plus's video specs are really great as well, and this isn't something I would normally mention in a phone review because I don't find it that interesting, but the Note 10 Plus really does have a good array of video modes. Battery life on the Note 10 Plus is good. Not great, but pretty good. You'll get through an entire day with no problems, but don't hold out for much longer than that. I'm ending most days with about 20 to 30% with a screen on time of around 3 hours. I must admit, I was expecting a little more, but there's always options to get more out of it, like dialing back the screen resolution, but I don't really want to do that. It's worth keeping in mind though that everyone uses their phones differently, so your mileage really might vary, but I'll be pretty comfortable to say this will get you through a day no problem. Luckily, juicing up the battery is really fast. The included 25 watt fast charger can easily top up a sizable amount of battery in 20 to 30 minutes, and the Note 10 Plus can even support faster charging at 45 watts too. That's 15 more watts than the dash charging on the OnePlus 7 Pro, and I really can't imagine things getting much quicker than that. Just like the OnePlus 7 Pro as well, I've stopped charging this phone overnight like I usually do and just pop it on in the morning, which gives me more than enough charge to get through the entire day. Oh, and for those that use it, wireless charging is of course here too. I think it's fair to say that you'd be really hard pushed to dislike the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. It's got an amazing screen, a great set of cameras, true powerhouse specs, and an all-day battery life. But for all of the Note 10 Plus's bombast and myriad of features, you should probably only really consider getting one for these two reasons. One is that you really love the idea of using the S Pen, or you've used it in the past and you can't live without it. Or two, if you're looking for the absolute pinnacle of big phone design at the moment. If you're not looking at those things, there's loads of other phones out there which would match up to the Note 10 Plus in many ways. For instance, the Galaxy S10 Plus is basically the same phone without the pen. The OnePlus 7 Pro is worth checking out, and the Huawei P30 Pro are all very similar in a spec for spec basis, and they deliver about 90% of what the Note 10 Plus is giving you, and you'll save a few £100 buying those instead. But if you're willing to pay the price, the Note 10 Plus will easily become your favourite piece of technology, and I must admit, it's been a pure joy to use. So that rounds up this review. If you enjoyed it, pop a like. If you loved it, pop a sub. If you've got any questions, just ask me below, and also hit that bell so you can see more videos coming from me soon. I'll see you all in the next one.